All right. So to start things off, you ended the score season last year by winning the Baja 1000, and then you begin this season by winning San Felipe. How good does it feel to have this sort of little win streak going so far?
Yeah, it's great. Obviously, the end of the year last year, winning the 1,000, obviously the biggest race in the score series by far. But honestly, before the 1,000, I was kind of having not so great luck, and I don't believe in luck too much, but not great results. Not anybody's fault. But it just wasn't going right for me. And then going to the 1,000, was able to pull one off at the biggest, baddest, longest race of the year. By far was cool. But after that, I wanted to make sure that nobody thought it was a fluke. And obviously, every race I've gone to with the whole Polaris Factor Racing team has been, all in for me, and trying my hardest. And everybody with the team, I'm actually at the shop right now, and the boys are hard at work right now on a Tuesday. And every race I try to go and win. But after the 1,000, I really wanted to make sure that my name stayed at the top. And then going into San Felipe, it was the same thought. And obviously, a new teammate Max Eddy was going to elevate all of our games some more. And going to San Felipe, felt we had a good shot at it. Always feel that way, but did our work pre-running. The boys did the work in the shop. All the logistics were sorted, and it was honestly super smooth sailing before the race and even after the green flag. Honestly, just had a pretty easy day, and that's kind of how they go when you win. Nothing happens, and it's easy, and you never get your heart rate up, and just cruise, and you get to the finish line, and they tell you you're first, and you get to celebrate with the boys.
Now you started back in 18th, but made some pretty big gains in the last 50 or so miles. I think you were like third at mile 200. What was your mindset and strategy going into that final run to take the lead?
Yes, San Felipe is pretty notorious for being the roughest race of the year. Obviously, it's the shortest, and a lot of people would think the shortest means the easiest, but it's the far opposite. Honestly, it's one of the harder races of the year because it's short. Everybody kind of seems to get on it, and they want to win the first 50 miles. And for me, after pre-running and knowing the course pretty well, and seeing how rough and torn up it was, and a lot of people would say how fast the course was, and it was fast. But it wasn't necessarily fast mile an hour wise. It was straight. A lot of the course was very straight, and again, that would go back to people thinking that it was easy. Everybody can drive down the highway in a straight line, but San Felipe is nothing like that. A lot of it's 3 or 4 foot deep bumps, and when you're not in that, you're in a sand wash that's all torn up from the trophy trucks ahead of you. So my plan kind of going into it was, we're going to get it to Borrego, which was where race mile 200 it was, out of whatever it was, 283 miles. We'll see where we are there, and base our race off that. And honestly, I didn't have a split time or know where anybody else was. Obviously, I had been passing some competitors, but really had no idea. I knew my two teammates were ahead of me, didn't know how much ahead they were. And when we got to Borrego, got a split time, and I think we were, 3.5 minutes down to the leader. And I knew I had a great car still under me. I knew that we just kind of cruised the beginning of the day and had, 95% of the car still left under me. And that's always a great feeling. Obviously, what I just said about the bumps and everything, you really, it's kind of hard. It's a hard decision to know whether to go fast, because these Polaris Pro Rs are so capable. They can go across the big bumps, but sometimes you're worried about beating them up, and they take a lot of abuse. But you're always worried about that odd chance of something happening and a part failing. Luckily, we don't have that issue too much. But again, back to when I got to race mile 200, knew I had a lot of car left, and knew we had 80 miles to the finish line, and it was a rough 80 miles. So I knew we could make up some time, and honestly, didn't try to go crazy or anything. I knew that both my teammates ahead of me were I was third or fourth, and had both my teammates and a Polaris teammate, Brandon Sims, ahead of me. And that overall, with the whole team and everything, you want to make sure that Polaris as a whole has a great result. So it wasn't anything like kill mode the last 80 miles, but it was picking up the pace a little bit, and kind of just kept with that the last you know 40, 50 miles, kind of kept with that. And as we got closer and closer to the finish line, kept picking up the pace a little bit, and nothing crazy, but just kind of cruised. And car felt great. Wanted to go faster. It probably would go faster than I would even want to go some of the places. And I handled all the bumps super well, and was able to top speed mile an hour very, very well, and got to the finish line. And I wasn't that worried about it. Normally, you get to the finish line and you're really worried, like, oh, where'd we get? What did we get? Did we win? Did we get second? And I knew that no matter what, it was one of us three, me, Hager, or Max, was gonna win. So I honestly didn't care too much. And that's a weird thing to say. Like, why wouldn't you care if you won or not? But I knew it was gonna be a win for the team, and a win for the team is a win for me, in many ways. But someone brought up the unofficial results, and it had me ahead of Brock Hager by 13 seconds, which, it's rare that a race ever comes down to seconds. Normally it's, a minute or two, or sometimes even 5 or 10. But at the finish, we got word that we won by 13 seconds. And again, it wasn't, over the top crazy. I wasn't, crazy excited, because, I just wanted a team car to win, and it was cool to be me, but I'd be cool if it was any three of us. So yeah, it was good to get the win, and honestly, it was um, a pretty simple day, and nothing went wrong, and everything kind of seemed to go right.
So how different is driving the Gen 2 Polaris factory compared to its predecessor?
It is different in some ways, and in a lot of ways it's the same. And the explanation I've kind of given is we had Generation 1 all last year, and it was, somewhat of a prototype. And Gen 2 came out, and it's basically a Generation 1 car that went through with a fine-tooth comb and made our little adjustments. And it's really only, 10 or 15% different. Behind the steering wheel feels very similar. There's some ergonomic changes that we've made. Um, but nothing, huge performance wise. Obviously, everything is performance driven in a race car. But it was really just Gen 1 went through with a fine tooth comb, and I'm stoked that we've gotten, that much done, that much improvement made in a year. And it only makes me eager to what's ahead and what we can improve upon Gen 2, because it's racing, and there's always something better out there, and you're trying to find it. And that's what's great with the team is we have so many people with their heads down, trying to find what that next step is, to get some more speed out of these cars. So it's small amounts different. Obviously the ergonomics and the look of the car is different. But inside the cab they're very similar. We've worked on a lot of shock setup over the winter, with Fox, our suspension partner, and made some seriously big gains there. And I think that speaks to winning San Felipe, because as I just said, how rough the race course is, your suspension is a huge deal. And with the help of Fox over the winter, we made some big gains and steps forward there. So I would chalk it up to, both Generation 2 being, a better car overall, and our partners, whether that be Fox or BFG or anybody on the side of the car, stepped up too over the winter, and just kind of came together and made a better Gen 1, and that's what Gen 2 is.
So back in January, Maxetti said the following about the team, and I quote, "How do you top sweeping the races last year? You followed it up by sweeping the podium 1, 2, 3. How confident are you in the team's ability to pull off a goal like this for the rest of the season?"
Yeah, I think absolutely. You don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, and I don't think, when we say that, we are. We're not getting ahead of ourselves. Everybody's been super super conservative in the fact that we won all the races, and honestly, I think it's been said by so the higher ups in the team that none of us thought we were going to do that, and I was probably one of those. I thought for sure we'd win in one or two and have good showings at all the races last year, but after winning all four, that was a pretty big task, because how do you get better than that? And yeah, I guess everybody decided the next thing better than that was to sweep the podium and go 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3, 4. And yeah, I think that's definitely possible. I think that's way more of a tremendous feat than anybody could think it is. It's super difficult to have three or four cars have a perfect day, and that's what you need in the UTV class to be 1, 2, 3, 4. And honestly, our first two races this year with King of the Hammers and San Felipe, we've been very 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 close. So it's not something that I'm upset about if it doesn't happen. I think it's very possible. I think everybody here at the shop is wanting to do that, and everybody's working really hard to do that. But it is a tremendous feat that I don't think people, not just within the team but outside the team, when that day comes and we do go 1, 2, 3, I think 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3, 4, I think it'll go tremendously unappreciated, because it's definitely a hard thing to do. To get three or four cars to the finish line with no issues, and all have good days and good pace all day is tremendous, and definitely something that I think we will do someday. But I'm not going to sit here and be bummed that we don't.
So how have guys like Max and Brock pushed you as a driver?
Hugely, yeah. Obviously, it's great to have teammates, and it's not really something that you normally have in off-road racing. I've given the analogy that normally in off-road racing, you're racing for the name on the door, which is your own. And sure, you may have a couple sponsors and supporters, but they're not all too involved in the day-to-day of the race team. This is completely different. You're racing for not only your name. The name, my name on the car is the smallest part, very small part. I get in the race car and I drive it on race day. That's my job, and that's all I really have to do. All the blood, sweat, and tears that's put into every inch of that car is really what makes the team the team. And yeah, that's included with the other two drivers. They have their names in the car and they feel the same way. But having a background like Max Eddy does in motorcycles and the amount of Baja experience he has, and not only on motorcycles, but the last 2 or 3 years in a UTV with Crick Scanlon, he's hugely motivated as well. Not only knowledgeable but motivated to win. He's kind of it's his first year with his name on the car. He's got to prove himself, and I'm sure he feels that pressure, and he knows he can, and everybody here thinks he can, or else he wouldn't be in the car. But yeah, he feels the pressure, I'm sure, but I know for a fact that he's up for it, and he can handle his own, and he can be up there with all of us, and with his background and his experience, it's great to have. And then as far as Brock goes, that guy is just a generational talent behind the wheel. He's natural. He was born with it. Obviously, he's been racing a lot, but he has something that not a lot of people have, and it's just the link from his brain to his hands to honestly his butt in the seat. He just feels what the car is doing and can respond to that so well. So that's where I get a lot of help from Brock, and is actually the driving wise, and Max on the motivational aspect of it. And I think they get some from me too, and the three of us working together along with Craig. Craig's got a huge background to be able to know how to win these races, and we all kind of work together, and nothing gets kept a secret. We all share our lines, and that's what's going to make this team successful, and that's what's been doing in the last year. All of us working together, driver wise and team wise, sharing a little bits and pieces, and everybody within the team has racing experience from somewhere or another, and everybody's got something to bring to the table, and nobody goes unheard, and that's what it takes to make a successful race team. I think.
Right. So outside of score, the team's also going to do Vegas to Reno, and I think you've done it before as a truck co-driver. But how do you feel about racing it in the UTV this time around?
Yeah, actually, last night, funny enough, in the shower, I was thinking about Vegas to Reno, and yeah, it's still, what are we, 5 months away, 4 months away, and that's how you have to think about things to win these races. You got to think about them years in advance. But I was thinking about it last night, and yeah, I haven't raced Vegas to Reno in a UTV. I raced it twice in a truck, and I'm sure it's very different in a UTV. And obviously, I've been paying attention to the Vegas to Reno race when I'm there. The UTV class, I've been paying attention to how they race, and it seems like it's wide open all day, and that's something that we're really excited to go do, and not to have the pre-running and show everybody that it's not the support we have, but we're also pretty good drivers and have really good vehicles, because with a race like Vegas to Reno, the team can't back you up that much. Once the green flag waves, you're kind of on your own. So I think that'll be a true test to the team, and I'm up for it, and the team's super excited to do it. And it's definitely a hugely different race. Doesn't have anything like the terrain we have in Mexico. A lot of it's very fast fire roads and graded roads and some washes and a lot of elevation change. So I think it'll throw a little bit of a twist in our schedule, and I'm up for it, and the team's up for it. But obviously next is the Baja 500, which we're very much at home at, and focused on winning that one now. And after the 500, we'll focus on Vegas to Reno.
So how different or how similar or different is racing a truck compared to a UTV for you?
It's actually pretty similar. The trucks are purpose built, handmade for these races. The UTVs are influenced and have the blood of these races in them, but they're made for to go on a dealership floor and be sold to the general public. A trophy truck will never be that way. It's far too unattainable for anybody to go race a trophy truck. As compared to a UTV or a Razor, that's way 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 more attainable. And you could go get a UTV from a dealership and throw some things in it, grab some sponsors, and be down there racing in Mexico or the US, and you can come beat us. There's nothing really stopping you. The buy-in is not huge like a trophy truck, so that's the biggest difference. as far as after the green flag waves, it's very similar. I think the competitiveness in UTV is itching its way towards the competitiveness of trophy truck. Some great drivers in UTV and also trophy truck, obviously. But I don't think that gets noticed enough. Is the talent that's in the UTVs? Both Brock Hager and myself have won in trophy truck or trophy truck spec. And we're racing UTVs, and we're at the top of our game in UTVs, and it's not easy for us to go win these races. So I think that speaks the level of competitiveness and drive and determination in the UTV class. So it's different, but it's also you still have a steering wheel and two pedals, and you're going whatever speed you want to go, and you have the team behind you. So it's honestly not hugely different. And going into Vegas to Reno, I'm not thinking about the fact that I just said that I've never raced in an UTV at all. I have good amount of UTV experience and feel with the team behind me, we'll do great at Vegas to Reno.
And I guess on the topic of UTV racing, it feels like it's been growing a lot more and more from OEMs lately. Like there's Polaris with the factory team, Can-Am with the Maverick R, Honda with their Talon, Speed UTV, all of those guys. What are your thoughts on how UTV racing has grown?
Yeah, it's grown hugely, and I think it does speak to the attainability of it. And a UTV is something that's pretty easy to drive, and someone's 16-year-old daughter or son can drive it, and 65-year-old grandmother or grandpa can drive the UTV and go have fun in the forest at their cabin, river house, or anything like that. So it's super attainable. But also, I think it's something that's neglected by some would say that the higher level of our sport being trophy truck, that the UTV game and the manufacturers being involved, whether that be Polaris or whoever, um, them being involved in the sport is bringing value to those guys, a lot of value to those guys, and having a UTV on a commercial at home, you're never going to see a trophy truck on a commercial, very rarely, compared to a UTV or something like that. So it's bringing in to the household way more. It's making it attainable for that everyday guy that maybe he's never seen a trophy truck or has dreamed about a trophy truck since he was a kid. To be able to go play and get somewhat that feeling that a trophy truck gives you with the Polaris.
All right, so looking ahead beyond racing with Polaris, what else do you have planned this year?
Not too much. I'm pretty head down and focused on the race team, and that they've given me the opportunity to be able to do that. Along with Max and Brock, we're super focused on the team, and that's what it is. It's a huge deal for everybody involved. So, if anything takes my focus away from that, it's not fair to these guys that spend 40, 50 hours a week in this shop busting their butts, to get us out here. I'm super focused on the race team and bringing home trophies to this team. And I just walked in the race shop this morning with the San Felipe trophy, and you know and a dozen donuts. So whether it was the donuts or the trophy, their eyes lit up and they're stoked on it. The trophy and probably the donuts. So that's what brings joy to me, and trying to these guys put the work in, and it's my job to prove it. And if I'm not proving their job, I'm not going to get the respect from these guys, and I value that a lot. They put their lives and souls into this race team, and I need to bring home the hardware for them. So I'm pretty focused on that.
So, so this might be a little too far in the future, but what do you dream of doing once you feel it's time to try some other stuff? Like, do you plan on doing a trophy truck full time, or is there some other race on your bucket list, like the Dakar Rally or whatever?
I'd love to do Dakar, and I think it's something that's been brought, to the States a lot more, whether that be AJ Jones, Seth Quintero, Mitch Guthrie, even Robbie Gordon back a couple years ago going to race Dakar. The U.S. probably never really had much of its sights set on Dakar, and now it's kind of that thing that seems somewhat unattainable for some people. But as I work my way up in this, in the UTV racing, it's definitely something that's attainable, and I have my eyes set on. I'd love to go do it, and I went to Sonora Rally last year, which was actually an FIA sanctioned event, same as the Dakar Rally, and it was down in mainland Mexico. And it's kind of like I go to this race, and it's off road racing, and it's a sport that I grew up with and love a ton, but it's kind of a completely different genre of off road racing. So that definitely raises my eyebrows, and something to learn and become good at. And there's definitely a lot of interest there on the U.S. side now, and definitely for me personally. Would love to go run that, and along with some of the smaller rallies. I don't think, it's very difficult to just go over there and go race Dakar and do very good. I think you need to, make sure you put the work in, and I've been doing that, a little bit over the last couple of years. Getting familiar with how the races work, the navigation, the strategy to that, because it's day after day of racing, and it's basically like a San Felipe or a Baja 400 every day, for whatever 12 or 14 days straight. So there's a lot of logistics and stuff that come with that, and it's honestly a completely different way of thinking for a driver, I would imagine. So it's definitely something that I've had my sights set on and want to work towards and am actively working towards, but also focusing very much on this race team in the States. And I love being part of the UTV game, and kind of what you brought up of, oh, do you have your sights set on trophy trucks? Like, it goes back to that attainable thing. I'll probably never in my life be able to afford a trophy truck. It's what it is, and would I love to do that someday? Sure, but I'm not sitting here thinking, man, I wish I was in a trophy truck. Not at all. There's no team like this in trophy truck racing. Nothing that is, I think we have 5 or 6 full-time guys. That's few and far between in trophy trucks, working full-time. And the amount of effort and engineering work with a Fortune 500 company like Polaris behind it, that doesn't exist in trophy trucks. So I like this racing, and I give the example of racing with the UTV and with Polaris behind me. I'm not racing for my name on the door. I'm racing for a company that has, however many employees. I won't even take a guess. And each and every one of those employees is looking at me to display their brand and their product that they've worked so hard on for so long. So I really enjoy the UTV racing, and that's why I'll leave that.
All right. So before we wrap this up, just out of curiosity, how did you or the team decide this color scheme for the cars? Like, it's a nice shade, but why purple for you?
You have something against purple?
No, no, no. Like I said, it's a nice shade. I'm just curious.
No, honestly, last January or February, one of the first times I was in and out of the shop, getting acclimated to everybody, and the Gen 1s were first getting built. I walked into the conference room, and our team principal, Travis Clark, was sitting there at the table, and he looked at me and said, "Hey, you want to see something?" And I'm like, "Sure," like kind of curious. And obviously, it's the beginning, and I hadn't had much of a relationship with Travis. So he's my boss, and it was like kind of the first time your boss talks to you, and you're like, oh, a little nervous, like what's he gonna say? And he brought up on the screen a rendering of the cars, and it was a yellow, a blue, a red, and a purple, and it had the driver suits rendered there with it. And I was ballsy enough to ask the question, so who's who? Which color's color? Well, like which one's which? And there were a couple people. We had a little bit of a crowd around at the table, and he looked at me and said, "You're purple." And everybody started laughing, and I didn't know why, because I think purple's pretty cool, and it goes along with some colors, and I think it's very in right now. And I have absolutely no problem with purple, and I think it gets a lot of attention, and I love that, and can bring more attention to the team and the race car. I think it looks really good on the race car, and also on the driving suits and some of the team shirts. So I think it's a little bit different of a color that hasn't been seen in off-road racing or any racing, to be honest. So I'm fully behind the purple, and call me what you will, but the purple wins, it looks like. So I like it, and I'm gonna keep with it for as long as I can.
Yeah, totally get it. Totally get it.
It looked rad. Love it.
All right. And we wrap this up. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Honestly, just a thank you to everybody, and not just SCI or Polaris, but there's a lot of people. We've developed a new tire with BFG. I don't know if that's supposed to be known or not. I think so. I think it's fine. We've started to develop a new tire with BFG, and some other companies developing stuff, and that's I'm super appreciative of that. And everybody's working hard to make our stuff better, and we're working hard to make sure that our brands are properly displayed on the top of the podium. So I guess just a thank you to everybody that's gets to or has been welcome to put their name on the side of the car along with mine.